This was the single most amazing wildlife experience of my life so far, and I would be kind of surprised if this is ever topped. Hey guys, Ariel over here. This is going to be a much longer and more in-depth wildlife video than any of the many I've shared over the years, and I know that the wildlife videos are not always the most popular. In fact, they're never the most popular. A lot of folks just aren't as interested in that, but this is something that's really close and special to my heart. This was just a fabulous experience, and it was actually it felt so private and personal to me, between me and these animals, that it's been hard for me to put this together to share it, because yeah, it just really felt so personal. So what you're going to see here is combined footage of the most exciting moments of a week that I spent being able to watch multiple mountain lions on a elk carcass. This was an elk killed by, I believe, the first mother lion I saw on it with her two kittens. I call them lions. They go by mountain lions, cougars, pumas, whatever you call the big wild cats in North America. This was very near my house, and this was filmed in the spring, the week before, if you follow everything else around here, the week before we moved the tiny house to its new home. So this was a year and a half ago now, and partially I didn't get this footage put together because we were so busy with moving and everything, but like I said, it felt so intensely personal. It's been kind of hard for me to share this, but what happened was I got to see these cats on private property. It was the part of the ranch, basically, that I was living on at the time, and this was not this ranch backs up to National Forest. This was not a game preserve. These are not baited animals. They're not trained animals. It's not a game park, nothing like that. These are totally wild. And I have found over the years lots and lots of mountain lion kills as I hiked and snowshoed and such around the area, and I've always been tempted to go back and sit there with my big camera and hope to get a good shot of a mountain lion. I've been able to photograph. Grizzly bears aren't that hard to get, close enough to get photos to as far as big animals go. Moose, elk, all that stuff. But mountain lions are somewhat difficult. So I've always been tempted to go back and sit on a kill, because I was pretty sure if I sat there long enough, the cat would come back to eat, and I would be able to get a photo. That was the photographer side of my brain. The other side of my brain was very much like, that would be a really, really stupid idea, because you're sitting on top of something's meal, and that something is going to come up behind you and possibly kill you. So I never did. This situation worked out perfectly. Clay, who's my husband, was actually out just doing some of his work, went down there's multiple trails through the woods and such, and basically tripped over. He had seen some turned up dirt, and was like, who's been messing around back here? There shouldn't be anybody else here. And went over to investigate it, and as he gets up to it, he sees one hoof sticking out of the turned up dirt pile, and is like, oh dear, this is a freshly buried, killed animal, and whatever just killed it and buried it is probably looking at me right now. So he backed off from that and told me what he found. But because there's this little trail that goes there, I was able to skinny my car back in. Here you can kind of see where the distance, I think it was about 30 yards, where I was able to park my vehicle away from the spot where they had this elk carcass. That allowed me to feel safe sitting there, because I was basically using my vehicle as a hard-sided blind. I knew nothing could sneak up behind me. The only opening was the window I was looking out of. And so when he first found it, I was thinking it was probably a cat kill, because they tend to bury and hide their meals like that, versus a wolf, which it certainly could have also been, or a bear. They don't tend to hide them in the same way. So that first day, I went out there and thought, I don't know what I'm going to see. Don't know if I'm going to see anything. But I sat there till well after dark, and I spent, over the course of the week, about 40 hours of time sitting out there in my car. Most of this was below freezing because it was early in the morning and late in the evening. Spring here is below freezing. I didn't want to make any noise, so it wasn't like I had the vehicle running. I mean, I pull in there, park it, turn all the lights off, shut off everything electronic, and sit there in the front seat bundled up in, warm clothes with a wool blanket over me, and with my camera just, propped on the windowsill, looking out the window like this and using that as my blind. I also happened to be in a spot that was downwind of the carcass, which probably worked well for making the lions more comfortable with coming in while I was sitting there, but also meant that I spent a good bit of 40 hours smelling a rotting carcass, which wasn't the most fun part of this. But I want to go through, I've got a ton of footage here, and I just want to kind of go through this week as it happened, and give you guys a little taste of experiencing what I got to experience. So the first evening I went out, I figured whatever had killed it wasn't likely to come back in broad daylight once a human had stumbled over their kill site. So I went back that evening a little before it got toward dusk and just parked there and sat there and waited and watched and waited and watched and saw nothing. I mean, this is just hours going by. And then there was some ravens. They hadn't found the kill yet because it was pretty well buried. Some ravens in the general area, but they kind of set up a little ruckus and took off, and I thought, something's coming, something's moved, something's changed. And it's getting fairly dim, almost too dark even for this camera to be able to see at this point. And I'm just scanning carefully all around everything I can watch, just slowly trying to move nothing but my head, my eyes, and I see a hint of movement kind of off in the distance, and then there's a mountain lion sitting there in the little path, just looking at me. I mean, she came out from behind a tree enough she could see me, and she just stared very intently right at the car for a long, long time without moving. And then she sat down and looked at the car and never came any closer while I was there. It got fully pitch dark till the point I couldn't see anymore. I'd seen her look over her shoulder a few times, which made me wonder if there wasn't a second cat there. But I didn't see it until it's pitch dark. I can't see anymore. I've got fairly good night vision. I spend a lot of time without using electric lights and walking around the woods in the dark and such, way below anything the camera can see. So I finally started my car to back out this little trail and come out of the woods and come back home for the night. When my headlights turned on, there was a mountain lion 10 feet from my front bumper that I could not see at all until the headlights came on. And it, of course, vaporized. But I wondered if it wasn't a second one, because the one I'd been watching, the adult female sitting in the trail looking at me, hadn't seemed to move. I hadn't really looked away from her, and even though it was too dark for me to see, I hadn't seen any sign of her moving. But I thought, that's probably my imagination. There's probably just a single cat, and she snuck up closer to see what was going on. Again, made me thankful I had a hard-sided vehicle to use as a blind. So I went home, went to bed that night. And by the way, the sound you're hearing here is exactly what I heard this whole time. Sometimes you can hear birds, sometimes you can hear a rustle, occasionally you can hear the foxes, but for the most part, absolutely nothing. These cats are silent. Your audio, it's not that your audio isn't working, I am just letting you listen to exactly what I heard. I kept hoping she would come closer and come over to actually eat some of her kill, but she eventually decided not to. Backed up a little further down the trail to where I could still see where she was sitting, but not so clearly, after taking a nice good long stretch there. And that's the spot I watched her in till dark, though she was really out of range there in the brush of the camera being able to see through and see her. In the meantime, during the day, Clay and I put two game cameras we had on either side of the kill, so you'll occasionally see the second one. It's just an infrared flash going off, but it looks to the opposite camera like a flash go off here in the middle of the night. And as you can see, there were 3 cats. Very clearly, multiple times, 3 cats in the picture. I did not find this out till later. This now is the next morning. I was back before sunrise, well before daylight, parked in the dark, didn't see a thing when I pulled in, sat there totally quietly, and then after a while, this lady came back and pretty much just worked on recovering the kill. She's scraping all the dirt and branches and sticks and such there up over it to hide it. In hindsight, once I had pulled the game cameras and seen that her and 2 kittens of hers were there in the middle of the night, I realized they were probably there eating until they heard my vehicle rolling in the morning, and they disappeared. And then after a while, she decided it was safe enough for her to come back and hide their meal better. But that was cool because at this point, still, I had only seen her. It wasn't until later that I looked through the footage and saw there was actually 3 lions on the kill that night. So now I'm fairly sure that the one that was in front of my bumper was a second cat. But I got to watch her spend quite a while really, really thoroughly burying their meal so that nothing else would find it or see it, hopefully, and they'd be able to come back and eat later after going and sleeping off the good meal they'd had. After being sure that apparently this food source was hidden to her satisfaction, she walked off behind some trees and laid down to nap for a little bit, where it was hard to focus on her, and then she just vanished out of my sight. In the meantime, apparently her hiding job wasn't entirely successful because several foxes found the kill. And they would come in, dart in, eat, looking fairly nervous the whole time. You'll notice they keep popping up and looking around. They're very alert. I'm sure they could smell and sense that there was cats not very far away, but they were willing to take the risk to be able to eat something like part of an elk that's far too big for a fox to bring down on its own. So it was entertaining because I was sitting out there for many hours, and a whole lot of those hours, absolutely nothing was going on. So it was fun to see the foxes pop in and out and get to watch them for a little while. As the cold spring rain started to pick up, you can see that Fox is clearly startled by something and decides it is high time to trot his way out of here. I figured once again that this was likely for a good reason, and sure enough, here comes a cat. Back down the trail and onto the kill. This was really incredible. I didn't get a ton of video footage of this because I was taking more still photos, because this was one of the few times I got to see a lion out in broad daylight where the light was actually good instead of in the dusk or the dawn. But she didn't stay long. I think she was just mostly wanting to get the foxes to go away, and then she disappeared and they came back again. Later in the evening, the foxes have continued to come and go, and then I got to experience this very interesting sight. I've seen many, many foxes over the years. They're in our yard just about every night, and this was the first time I've heard one just bark continuously like this. It seemed like it was on alert. It was looking up the hill in the direction the lions had come and gone from, and I don't know why it was doing this, but it was very interesting to hear. whatever the reason it was doing that. I got to watch that, and eventually it got pitch dark, and I saw nothing ever come back. So once again, I'm going to insert here the footage that I later was able to pull off of the wildlife cameras. And once again, the flashing you're seeing straight across is because there was 2 cameras across from each other, and they see each other's infrared flash go off. Once again, you will see that there is more than one lion on it here. They just waited till the pitch dark when nobody was around. This time, I'm trying to remember, I think I only saw 2 cats. Nope, this is another night where all 3 of us back. So I'm fairly sure this was the mother who originally had brought down this elk with her 2 mostly grown kittens. They're almost as large as her, but when you get to see them up close later, you'll realize that they definitely don't look fully mature yet. You will see all 3 of them take turns eating, napping, wandering around, rolling upside down, generally acting like any kitty cat that you might see anywhere of any size, which was neat to observe. Then you will see on the right-hand side of the frame something very interesting happened, and I would have really loved to see this in broad daylight. This was just amazing. You could see the cats look that direction a couple times. I didn't think much of it as I was flipping through these shots on the game camera later. And then this occurs. You see that cat roll upside down and see this fellow? He is huge. This is a giant male who comes in, chases the mother off of that side of the kill. There you can see the kitten's head come up. One of the kittens was eating back behind there, bowled it clean over, ran it out of there, came back in to just take over their kill and chase them completely out of there. After this, that mother actually had an injury on her side that I believe she got from this fight with this male. Here's the same scene from the opposite game camera where you can see him come in and roll the other cats upside down as he chases them out of there. They weren't just leaving easily, but he ran all of them off and then came back and just had a feast all to himself with something that I'm fairly certain he didn't kill because he didn't show up here till 2 days after they had been eating on it and carefully hiding it and covering it up. So now this is the 4th mountain lion that I've seen on this kill, and he was an amazingly beautiful, you can even see in the black and white shots the dark color to his coat and his huge muscling. I would have loved to get a photo of that fellow in the daylight, but it never happened. He eventually disappeared. And this may have worked out well for me because by the time I was back before daylight again, the next morning, I got to see the cats come back out to eat when there wasn't. I may have been the thing that scared him off. I'm not sure. He disappeared and they reappeared, and I actually got to watch them. Now, this whole time, I'm not aware that there's just been a large male there or that he had chased them off their meal, but it probably did work out well because it meant they came back here in the dawn light to finish filling up once he was gone, and I was able to observe this. Except that it wasn't the mother with 2 kittens who came back. As you're watching here, you'll notice there's only 2 cats, and it's hard to see. This is still well before any real daylight, But this is a mother with a single kitten. I'm pretty sure a large tom kitten. Once again, this baby would be in its second year and is almost as large as her, but not looking fully mature. But this is clearly, whenever you can see her face, a different mother. She has a much darker shaded face and a little bit of a longer shape. The other mother of two is more round and a light tan on her face. And so I don't know how these two found it, but now this is cats 5 and 6 that I have seen on this same kill. And they hung out here in the daylight and, as it became daylight gradually, and fed on this kill for quite a while. My good friend Moose, who's also a photographer, much better than me, was able to, at the time we lived somewhat close to each other, he was able to come join me a couple of these times when we watched for cats, sometimes when we saw one, sometimes when we did not. And he, I believe, got a video done quite a long time ago because he was much more on top of it than I was, sharing some of this as well. You may also want to check out his work. He takes incredible wildlife photos. But most of the time, it was just me sitting there, and it really did feel like such an amazing private experience. It was almost like a farewell gift from the wildlife of the area where I'd lived for all those years. Like they came to let me see them all at once and say goodbye and take photos of them, and it was just a really, really incredible experience. once again, I'm only sharing the really interesting parts, as in part of the 40 hours that I was sitting there in the cold, smelly air when there was actually an animal present doing something. This mother, once again, was very careful to cover the carcass back up, despite the fact that I'm fairly certain this wasn't originally her kill. The male, however, had just left everything uncovered and torn all apart, which may be how these two found it. But she covers it up here. You can see her slightly more gray-colored kitten cleaning his paws. And this is about the time it actually started to get enough daylight to really see clearly. And then the two of them disappeared off up the mountainside into the woods as well. In between all this stuff, there was tons and tons, like 6,000 shots that the game cameras captured of, at this point, the carcass is getting known in the area, and there was ravens and vultures and magpies that came in to feed on it. The foxes continued to pop in and out, and I am not sharing nearly all of that footage, but there was many, many smaller creatures that came and went. And then this happened. This cat came and went in broad daylight while I was working and didn't assume anybody would be there in the middle of the day. I entirely missed seeing it. I don't know if this was a yet different cat or not, because that was the only time I saw a single cat on the kill from the cameras. If so, that was possibly a 7th lion that was on the same kill. It could have also been one of the other batches of more than one, where only one came out where the camera could see it. I don't know the answer to that. Anyway, then there was another evening that went by while I sat there, like quite a few of them, and saw not a single thing, not at all. And once again, they came back in the dark, and this again appears to be the mother with 2 kittens, so the batch of 3, and they napped and ate and rolled around and went to the bathroom. Their bathroom tree, they decided, was directly in front of that game camera, and so you will see at times they came over there and used the toilet. Big cats, very much like house cats, like to all use the bathroom in the same area, and so that kind of worked out interesting to have their bathroom tree be directly in front of what one of these game cameras was recording. So they hung out a bunch in the dark, and then finally daylight came again, and I was once again there before daylight and didn't see anything for a minute, and then saw this. You can see in various places through this footage I was actually trembling with excitement to see this. But I don't know if these guys hadn't got enough to eat because of all the other cats around or what, but they came out in, this is still early in the morning, but enough light for me to be able to clearly see them. And this is back to, I'm pretty sure, the original mother and both of her kittens. And this was incredible. This was the one time I was able to see the all 3 of these guys in the daylight, get some fairly good photos, and here's where you can see the injury on her hind flank there at times, which I believe came from her altercation with that very large male cat. So, and there comes number 3. This was just the most spectacular, breathtaking moment of all the years that I have spent, probably hundreds of thousands of hours watching wildlife, to get to see 3 totally wild lions eating together in the daylight on their kill. At this point, there is not a ton of meat left on this carcass, but they're still getting a good meal. I did come back several days after this without successfully seeing any more cats return. They had at times during the night, and kind of finished it off and continued to drag the carcass around, but this was the last time that I saw any of them in daylight. You can see how they've just gotten there and they're unburying their carcass to start eating. So this was simply incredible. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this amazing experience. Like I said, I don't know if anything like this will ever be repeated or topped in my life, though I still love to watch wildlife, of course, and photograph them and video them whenever possible. But this was pretty spectacular to get to see that many different lions, totally wild, not baited, not trained, not on a game farm where they're, pose for photographers, anything like that. Totally wild, be the only person around, have that eye-to-eye contact with a very big predator, something that weighs as much as me or more, and to just be able to watch them do their thing and have them somewhat, I don't know if I'd say accept, but realize I was there for sure, be aware I was there, look at me and decide that I wasn't a big enough problem for them to worry about and that they were just going to do their thing. And just to get to watch that was spectacular. So now you got to see the highlights of that without having to sit in the cold smelling rotting animal carcasses for 40 hours hoping to see something. And yeah, I just hope some of you guys maybe enjoyed that kind of like I did. If you want to, if you're not aware of this, I do sell prints of wildlife photos that I take if you want to have some in your house. And so click the link down below this video, Ariel Celeste Photography at zenfolio.com, and you can see lots of wildlife shots I've taken over the years, but including some of these mountain lions from this particular encounter that is just something that's going to really hold a special place in my heart, I think, forever. Hi folks, Ariel over here. I have always been fascinated about how a camera works almost like a time machine, giving me the ability to share with you little glimpses of wildlife and nature that I'm surrounded by that many folks will never get a chance to see in person. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you're interested in checking out more of my photography or getting your own prints, canvases, aluminum art for your own walls, check out the links below. Have a lovely day.